visions for about 4 years now, and I wanted to share them with people and see if anyone else had known anyone else that has had them or has had them themselves. And I'd never heard of them before. I'd heard about them in the Old Testament, but I never heard about them in modern day Christianity. I never thought they were a thing. And it was about a year and a half after I first became a Christian, and this is when I got the first one. And there's a couple, I'm going to tell you a couple of ones, just the main ones that were absolutely amazing. And although now I'll just fill in bits and pieces, but the first one that ever happened, I was sitting up doing a study on what hell was, and it was the 10 days I've been doing 10 days this, and when I first became a Christian and even up to now, I would have studied for 4 to 6 hours. I still do study, maybe not as much now, but I still do spend a lot of hours studying the Bible and trying to understand it. And I was trying to understand what hell was, because I have a lot of friends who are atheists and agnostics, and I really worried for them, same as some family members, and it scared me that Christians were saying, eternal torture and they're going to get tormented for eternity and all this. And I found out very soon that wasn't the case. I wasn't too sure. I wasn't 100% sure or anything after doing the study. But I remember after I finished this one study this night, about 3 hours in, I was getting tired, and I prayed, and I remember saying, I don't know what this is, but my God isn't a torturer. And I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt on this, no matter what. I'm going to do that. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, and I'm not going to believe this. I don't know. There's no way God's good. There's no way that's happening. And that was it. And I fell asleep on the couch behind me here, and I woke up, and there was a paragraph of writing. I woke up, and this paragraph of writing was about a foot away from my face, and it was floating in the air. And it freaked me out really badly. It had a green tinge to it, like a green effect to it, and whenever I closed my eyes for a couple of seconds, I could still see it. It's really freaked me out. And then I opened my eyes again, I could see it still for about 12 seconds or so, maybe a bit more. And it was getting up to, it had been there for about 8 to 10 seconds, and I remember thinking, if I read this and it says something bad, it'll mess me up for life. It'll screw me up for life. So I was like, right, I'm not going to read this. It's freaking me out, because it wasn't forced. Even though it was right there in front of me, it wasn't forced. You could choose to look at it or choose not to. You know what I mean? You could focus. You had to focus on it, which is kind of weird, if you know what I mean. So I was still getting these visions, and I got up to about a year and a half after this, and I had 4 visions, one a night for 4 nights, and they were all of the rapture. And it was never had a rapture vision ever, and I was like, right, okay, and they were quite vivid, and I was like, right, I felt a real urge to talk to someone about this. I never really went to church. I went to church for a year, didn't like it. It wasn't really my thing, it didn't really fit in. But I met a lovely elder guy, and my best friend had his phone number, and I got hold of him. He came round, and he talked to me for about 3 hours. He was a lovely guy, spent time with me, and he really had a real open mind. It was such a nice guy. I wasn't expecting it at all. Cracking fella. And he asked me to write down the visions. I had actually started writing down the visions when I first got them, but then I got about 3 or 4 months in, I just didn't write them down anymore. I was like, these are just for me, I'm not talking to anyone else, so there's no point in me writing them down unless it's something that seemed to be important. The more important visions were more vivid and more, that sort of thing. You could sort of tell. He asked me to come to the church on Sunday. This was on Thursday night, and he asked me to come to the church on the Sunday. And he said there was a new pastor there, and he was a lot more spiritual than the last guy, and he'd be really open to this. So I was like, okay, fair enough. And he said, write down any more visions you have, and keep a record of them, and bring any of the original writing down, the stuff you have written down with you. I talked to this guy on Thursday night, and the next night, it was the Friday, I had this vision, and it was unlike anything I'd ever had before. It was really unusual. It really stood out, and it was like, whenever I get more important visions, they really stand out, and this was one of those, and it was so unreal. The vision was from my living room, and in our living room we have a 3-seater couch, and there's an alcove behind it, and there's nothing in there at all. It was a dumping ground for jackets and the old blanket and a box of photos. It was just a dumping ground for this kind of stuff. So you got the couch, and then this wee alcove behind it, and then you have, to the right of that there's a door, and then to the right of that, the corner of the room where there's a wee bookcase, a small bookcase that was always filled with all of this stuff. And this vision started out facing this couch and this alcove behind it, and just stayed there for 5 to 7 seconds. It didn't change, and it was so unreal. It was like, okay. And next minute, this bit of light started getting brighter and brighter and brighter. It was coming from just above the top of the couch and just at the alcove, just in the alcove, and just started getting brighter. And it filled up the entire room, and then it filled up my entire eyes, and it was bright as anything. It was like someone had put a light bulb in my head and turned it on. It was absolutely mad. It was insanely, just insane. But it lasted for a couple of seconds, and then it just switched, and the vision changed from that living room to a top-down version. It was a version like looking down on this house, and this house was like a small cottage, and it was at a 45-degree angle to the left. I can still see it now, and it had a greenish tint to it again, very like the writing at the start, the first vision, and I had seen other green writing in between now and then. So it had 2 small windows the other side of the door. It was just a small cottage. It wasn't, and I had this notion that it was my house, but I mean, it looked nothing like our house, and absolutely nothing. It was far nicer. And like this lovely wee cottage thing with the green, the green sort of shimmer to the lines of it. It was weird, and that I wrote that down. And I went to the church on the Sunday, and the pastor wasn't there. He was away training in England or something, and there was someone else covering just for that day. And went through the prayers and the prayers and the hymns, and I got to the Bible teaching. And in that church there was 2 projectors. It was like a T-shaped church, and there was a projector that projected onto the wall on our left, and a projector that projected onto the wall just in front of us and to the right, and it projected the lyrics to the hymns, and whenever they're doing teachings, they projected little pictures to help show what they're teaching, or the actual Bible verses. And it got to the point where she was doing a teaching, this just one standing for one day, and she did a teaching on Zacchaeus, the tax collector, and she's going into Zacchaeus' house, and as she put up the screenshot thing on the projector, it was a picture of the house I'd seen in the vision. It was that house at the exact same angle, 45-degree angles to the left, 45-degree angle to the left, the same house, the same 2 windows, simple cottage thing, and it was the exact same thing. And I was sitting there, and it actually took me by shock. I was sitting there in this pew of the church, four rows back, and I have a written description of this church, of this house, in my wife's handbag on the pew beside me. And it was such a freaky thing. It was amazing. It was cool. But and the thing is, these teachings are never the same or ever used ever again. This thing was used once, and this is just a one who's standing in. She just did it herself on the side. She picked a picture of a house and stuck it on. There's no way I could have known what it was going to be, or guessed or anything else. It's not something subliminal. It was something that I never even thought of. I was only there to talk to the pastor. I wasn't there to see anything on the blooming wall. And I caught up with the elder that I'd been talking to before at the end of the service, and I said to him, look, I had a vision on Friday night, and I just want to show you that. I handed him the paper. I didn't even say anything, I handed him a bit of paper, and he read it. He sat down in the pew, and he near fell off the blooming thing, and he fell off the pew, and he got really excited. He goes, right, look, go get tea and coffee and stay for a wee while, would you, and I'll talk to you in a sec. And he held on to the bit of paper and whatever, and he came back to me. So he came back to me and he said, we're having a more spiritual meeting tonight at 7 o'clock, and what you're going to do is, if you want to get confirmation about these visions, you'll get confirmation from this guy who's visiting. This is a friend of the pastor. He's from outside of the church, and you'll get confirmation from him. I don't know. I mean, I didn't ask him why, or if this is a, set. If people have visions, do break in case of a vision or something. Break glass in case of vision. And that's the rundown for it. But he said this to me, and I was like, okay, cool. It's not really my thing, but I'm down. After what happened there, I mean, you nothing to lose. So we went back that night, and there's about 40 people in this place, maybe 35, 40, whatever it was. And the guy is there, he's visiting the place. He's never been to the church before, he's just a friend of the guy who just became pastor. And he's talking to this church elder, another church elder, who is a bit of an asshat. He's a bit of a pillock, but I'm not going too far into that, but he wasn't the nicest fella. And we met up with this older couple who were really nice to us, and they wanted us to sit beside them. They were sitting in the second row of this. We were in the church again. The elder that I was talking to, he had to take another. His wife was sitting in front of us in the other pew, just in front of us. But he was taking a class or something in the adjacent building to the church. He was doing something else, and he said to me he'd talk to me later on. I was like, "Cool, no problem, buddy." And he went off, and this guy who was only there he was just there as a guest to talk about how he became a Christian and his Christian walk and all this kind of stuff. It was not really my sort of thing, but cool. And he seemed like a really nice guy, but he was standing talking to this elder. He wasn't talking to anyone else in the room, and he stopped roosting. He came over to me and my wife, and I was like, actually had my heart racing a bit, but he just said hello. He just shook our hands and said hello. I stood up, shook his hand, hi to him, right, nice to meet you. And I was like, frick, that was weird. And then he got the mic and he went to start, tell us his how I became a Christian story, give us this wee rundown. And he said, before we start, I just want to say that I feel the presence of God with these two people. He pointed to me and my wife, and my heart sort of stopped. It was really weird. It was like, okay, that's freaky. And I sort of went numb. I stopped, I was listening to him, but I wasn't really taking it in. It was like a bit of minor shock, a small amount of shock. And so he was talking on, and something snapped me out of the, it's like, he was talking about, he says, I just have this real feeling that you're going to do something, and you're going to do something great for your friends and really help your friends out in the future. And that's all I've been trying to do this last couple of years was trying to bring my friends and some of the family to the gospel and share it. That's all I was interested in, because it doesn't matter. You haven't got the gospel, you've got nothing in this life. Nothing else matters. You can have all the money and everything else in the world. It doesn't make a bit of difference. And that was the only thing I was trying to do. And then he said that, and I was like, that's pretty amazing. This is where it went downhill from this point. It was absolutely amazing for me, but it went downhill here. The elder, who was a bit of a pillock or whatever, they had like a prayer meeting at the end of it, and he sort of forced me to come up. He said, no, you have to come up. I was like, no, I'm not interested. I said no 4 times or something along those lines. I was just going to walk out. And the original wee elder, the nice guy, he told me not to say anything about the visions. Don't mention it to anyone. Keep it to yourself and me, and don't say anything to anyone. And this will be, your confirmation of it. That if you get this from this guy, that'll be your confirmation. Don't tell anyone else. Say nothing to anyone. And I got my confirmation with that guy. And what I did was, I thought maybe this is a sign to talk to these 2 guys, because they're not letting me go here. They're, maybe it's an opportunity. And I gave him the brief 1-minute rundown of what happened. And this elder looked me square in the eye and said, "Are you sure you didn't make it up in your own head?" And after about a couple of minutes of talking and just getting frustrated, I lifted my jacket and lifted my missus and went, come on, let's go. And I never went back to the church. That was me. That was me out of the church. That was it. Again, it was done. I wasn't in for that at all, as if I was making it up in my head just for, That's what I do on a typical Tuesday afternoon. This is where it gets really amazing. So I had that first thing with the church and seeing the thing on the church, right? And it went on again. Then around about a year later, I had a single vision that was really freaky, and it was a vision. I could see myself, and I could see I have two of the same blue t-shirt. This for some reason it was on sale or something. I just got two of them for some reason, and I was wearing one of these t-shirts, the blue. I could actually see the t-shirt, and I had my head down, and there was a load of hands reaching up from below me, and it was like the cover of an Evil Dead, the Evil Dead horror movie like that. All these hands reaching, these black hands, shadowy hands reaching up from like waist height. It was reaching about waist height. They were coming up, and it was really it was like, what the heck? I had one or two that were a bit unsettling because it was different things, but this was very vivid and very scary. It was like, what the heck? And it was one of the few visions I didn't tell my wife about for something like 4 days because it took me back. So I was like, okay, fair enough. I'll just same as usual, faith, just don't worry about it, whatever. So 5 or 6 days passed, a week, and I get 3 visions in one night. Like, I've had multiple visions in one night before, but these were very different, very vivid, and even to this day, 3 years on, or maybe 2.5 years, whatever, I don't know whatever it is, but it was a long while ago, I can still remember them bit by bit. I mean, like, that's a lot of the visions. I can remember bits and pieces the next day, or I can remember the majority of it the next day, or all of it. But the more important ones are a lot more clear and vivid, and to say they're memorable is, it's an understatement. Well, these 3 were very clear, very memorable, and they turned out to be absolutely unreal. And the first vision with the hands raised up underneath me was kind of unsettling. The 3 that night, the first one was a crowd. It looked like a concert. It looked like a concert of people, and it was like a side view of this crowd, and they were every single one of them was walking to the right and walking out to this right, and there was one person coming towards where I was standing. They were walking to me a wee bit and to the left, and I was the only person who was walking from right to left, and they were on their own. And this person was walking through the crowd, sort of walking through the people and going to the left. And it was, like, they were wearing weird clothes. I can't remember what it was, I wrote down, but the clothes, whatever it was, in the biblical meaning of the things, it meant loneliness, for whatever the clothes were. And the next one, that was the first one, it ended there, and I fell back to sleep, and I woke up again to this next vision, and it was a vision of a man standing, like, it was all black and white and the people were very dark, but it was a vision of a man standing waist height above everyone else, and all these people reaching up, their hands reaching up, to the person's, right about the person's waist, fully reaching up to the person. And the whole thing, like, the whole place, there was a load of people, there's tons of people, maybe hundreds, I don't know, there's loads, and they were all real, these people reaching up. There was some to the left, but the majority of them all on the right, on the right hand side, coming towards and reaching up, and everyone was reaching up, and the guy had his arm stretched out, right arm stretched forward with a book in it, and in the background you could still see some people walking to the right, still walking out to the right side, and next minute this bit of light appeared on this book and got brighter and brighter and brighter, and the same thing that happened in the first vision happened again, where it filled up my eyes, just like someone turned a light bulb on your head, and this just opened, just went so bright, and once it happened, it stayed for a while, and then it ended. That was the end of the vision, and I was like, what the heck, that's unreal. So I fell back to sleep again. Third vision, and the third time was a viewpoint from the person that had the book in their hand, but you couldn't see any book. You just see from higher up. I'm watching all these people looking down and watching these people from a higher up point of view, and you could still see it was more focused. I could see the people here in front, but I could see them. It was more focused on the people further away, still walking away the other way. And next minute, out of nowhere in the sky, from the left hand side, this shadow appeared, and it was a weird looking shadow, and it appeared in the sky. And as soon as it appeared in the sky on the left hand side, it stopped over at the left hand side, and these people stopped. And probably 90% of them, that were still walking away, turned and ran back, and they were screaming. They were scared and screaming. They were running towards the big group of people. They were on the left, and there was still a couple that were still facing right, but the majority of them came back to the group and running. And then that ended. And I woke up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, or it was, 2:30, and I went into my computer, and my best friend was online and playing an online game, and I messaged him and gave him a rundown of the visions, and he was like, wow, that's amazing. I never really thought much of it. He was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then I remembered that the vision I had the week before, where it was me standing and these people reaching up with their hands. And I had a discussion with the elder, and I said there's a real opportunity to get a lot of people saved. Being the end times, or the rapture's coming soon, and there's a real opportunity for the church to get a lot of people saved. And he agreed, but he wasn't really into it, if you know what I mean. I think I still do think, and especially now that I saw that, I think that was confirmation from God, and I'm 100% sure of it now, that there's an opportunity, there's a chance to get a lot of people saved in this end time, and it will happen. And it's what keeps me going on even now. We're like around trying to talk to my friends and family and whoever else. It's what keeps me going at the minute, to share the gospel, because I saw that vision, and the opportunity is there, and it will happen. It will work out eventually. I woke up the next day and I went downstairs, and I'd completely forgotten, like, while in the period of this year between all this stuff happening, the first vision, my wife had bought a lamp, and this big lamp, and she wanted to put it in the living room, but it wouldn't fit in anywhere. It was just this big tall lamp, and she asked me to clear out the wee alcove thing and move the bookcase there. And I never thought anything of it. Just whatever, yeah. And there's just enough room in it, and I managed to get it in just behind the door, and the door could still close, and it had enough room. We were like, that's great. We should have done that long ago. And I'd walked downstairs and went into the living room, and I reached to lift my Bible, and then I just remembered, just got the recollection of the book with the light coming out of it. And the first vision I had, whenever I saw the house afterwards, and the vision of our living room, the one that was on the church wall, and the vision I had with the living room and the alcove behind it, that's exactly where my Bible was. And it wasn't even in round about the same place. It was the shelf where I'd bought a lot of books over the period of that year, and I ended up using that bookshelf, which I never used. It was just my missus' crap, and I eventually took a shelf out of it and filled it with my stuff. And the nine times out of 10, my Bible would have been up in this room for study purposes. But for some reason, I just started using downstairs, and put it in the bookshelf just randomly. It would have been sometimes in the bedroom next door, but I started using this bookshelf, and I lifted it, and it was exactly like just above the top of the settee, in the exact middle where that light emanated from the first time. And it freaked me out that much. I drove 8 miles to my best friend's house, and I told him about it, but he was a bit sort of like, are you sure you didn't just do that yourself, sort of thing, so it wasn't just you, pushing that on to make to be where it was or something. I was like I had no point of reference for a Bible to be the source of the light. The first vision was just light appeared in that room, that alcove, and that was it. I had no reference point to say that the origin point of that light was the Bible. It was unreal. It was amazing for me. Like I thought it was amazing. It just was it was next level. It just absolutely blew my mind.